Welcome everybody, whether you're watching us live or if you're watching a recording of this later on. The goal of today's webinar is to just look over the past 6 to 7 months and cover what new releases, new features have come out of our product and development team. They will primarily focus on access control and visitor management. So before we get into the details, for anybody new who hasn't been on one of our previous webinars, a quick bit about Genea. We are a technology company. We offer 3 flagship solutions: overtime HVAC, submeter billing, and access control. And again, access control will be our primary focus today. In terms of the customers that we serve, 2 big buckets are commercial real estate and enterprise. And there is quite a bit of overlap between the 2 groups, and our solutions really cover the needs for the enterprises within commercial real estate, and conversely, we enable our commercial real estate customers to better serve their enterprise tenants in commercial buildings. So how do we approach our product development, and how do we think about prioritizing the important things that we work on? At the end of the day, we are 100% customer focused, and the customer voice really informs me and my team and my counterparts in technology team. Where do we allocate resources, and what do we work on next? We think that the numbers that best speak to that are always our customer retention and net promoter score. So we rarely ever have customers leaving us, and we are very proud of that. We think that is down to our products and services. And also, net promoter score puts us above Apple, some of the biggest brands in the world. So this is something that we continue to be incredibly proud of as we continue to deliver new features to the market. When we look at the past 6 or 7 months, again, this is the second half of 2021. What we like to do at the end of every year or every 6 months, we like to look back and see how we've done. So over the past few months, we've had more than 200 customer insights. So insight is anything from a feature request to an email to a message that we exchange, or items that come in through our sales funnels. So we holistically look at where our current customers are, or where they will be taking us next, as well as our prospects. We are proud to be a company that can move fairly quickly, where we can adapt to the changes in the marketplace. And I think the best use case example of that is what we've been living through for the previous almost 2 years now. When the 2020 in March, when we all were sent home, just like any other company, we were thinking, how are we going to adapt and what the world is going to look like? Pretty soon it became clear that just because of the structure of the team that we have and the culture of the company, that we were able to adapt and that we are able to help our customers in the new and changing world. So just in the last half of 2021, we've released 50 new features. 8 of those were new integrations. And we always like to highlight integrations because it really allows us to live and breathe our creed, which is that we are hardware agnostic. We do not work on proprietary hardware, and we also like to play well with anybody else. So for any of our customers, be that commercial real estate or enterprise, we understand that we won't be excellent and the best of breed in every single aspect of the computer systems that are used in enterprises. To do that, we integrate with other excellent solutions to deliver an experience to our customers that is second to none. And we'll go into a little bit of that as we discuss some of the particular integrations that we've released. So let's start with some of the headline features that were released. Last time when we had one of these product update calls, we were talking about the badge printing and some of the bigger features, the global dashboards, items that were enabling global administrators in our access control platform to better serve their broad audience of employees, of users. After that, we've gotten kind of we've gotten, I like to say, more nerdy. We dug into the nuts and bolts of access control system itself, and some of those features, functionalities that were generally done at the piece of hardware, we've now elevated it into UI. One example of that is I/O rules. So what does that mean? When we are working with access control panels, they have the capability to be programmed. We call them if-then rules. So there's a possibility to set up a logic built onto a physical controller to create certain actions based on the inputs that it gets from the wires that are fed into it. So for example, I can say, I want to program a controller to lock down the IT room whenever a alarm is triggered, or to change the IT room to normal when the alarm is cleared. So all of that was always possible. The only trick with it was it had to be done either on an on-premise system, or we used to provide, and we still do provide that as a service, but there was friction. There was never a clear visibility of what those rules are, and it wasn't really scalable in a way that you can extend that to your entire enterprise or even delegate that control to your IT or to your system administrators. So what we do with I/O rules, we provide a simple, intuitive user interface to create those rules. So with the UI, we follow our philosophy that the less is more, that we need a functionality, but the real feature benefit comes from the intuitive way of creating actions in the user interface. The same is the case for our I/O rules. It's a complex subject that our team has managed to boil down into simple and intuitive user interfaces. Now, all of this is, of course, we have extensive documentation about how I/O rules work, but as always, our support team is there to help all of our customers through the process of creating custom rules. So it's something that that we're proud of to have released last year, and that will continue to improve over the months and months to come. Now, after I/O rules, one thing that became quite apparent is that we didn't always have a very good support for understanding what the status of our hardware is out in the field. It was, again, one of those items that was done in a pretty, I would say, low level, almost developer stack of the solution. But we thought there's no reason why we shouldn't expose a sync status or ability to sync panels on demand. Where this becomes important is in situations where access control panels go offline for a period of time. That can happen due to internet outage, can happen due to power outage. And at this time of year, that's actually quite frequent. Our whole entire eastern seaboard is battling snowstorms, which cause power outages. So when a controller goes offline, there is a possibility that the panel is out of sync with the cloud. So what does that mean? That means that all of my cards will continue working that were already passed onto the controller. But if I provision a new card to Rob, and Rob is standing in front of a door and he tries to open the door right away, there's a chance in certain circumstances that that wouldn't work. And then to make matters worse, we wouldn't know why. So we would have to troubleshoot again down at the system log level to understand, oh, we have a problem with the syncing of the controller because it was offline and now it needs to catch up. So one of the big items that we've delivered last year for all of our Mercury customers is, well, two things. One is automated triggering of a sync. So no matter what happens, as soon as that controller comes online, it will reach out back to the cloud and start the sync process, as opposed to waiting a minute or two or five. That becomes important when you have people standing in front of a door. So automated sync will kick off right away. And the second part that we've brought to the UI is on-demand syncing. So even if, for whatever reason, a sync process is underway, but it's taking a while, you, as a system administrator, always have a way to trigger that on demand. So in our situation, where Rob is standing in front of a door and he can tap the card to the door, I now have a way of saying, hold on a minute, let me press a button, try it now, and 3 seconds later it works. So it reduces the time that it takes to troubleshoot certain situations that we found painful for both our customers, integrating partners, but frankly, even for ourselves. One important thing to also mention here is that with the new way that we were doing controller syncs, is there's a zero data loss, even if controllers go offline mid-sync. One of my kind of fears and nightmares is whenever my phone update is going on, I always think, what if the battery runs out right now when it's updating? I'll probably have a bricked phone. I won't be able to do anything with it. There's a kind of a correlation to what happens if something fails midway through the process. Now, with the new way of syncing credentials and users and door configurations to the controllers, that kind of doesn't matter. It happens in an atomic way. So if for whatever reason controller goes offline in the middle of a sync, it will pick up right where it left on once it comes back. So this is a big item that we've addressed in August or September, where a lot of the system administrators and integrators will have an easier life on our platform. Then the next feature that we were tackling is temporary access. And although we already had multiple ways of creating access that is not permanent, we had a way to expire cards. We could have expired cards based on a employee profile. So I can have a different expiration point for contractors versus permanent employees versus interns. There was a particular use case that was hard to address, and it had to do with compliance, specifically compliance with highly restricted areas. Those are usually healthcare facilities, distribution centers, or even we had use cases where we needed to grant access to, for example, a IT technician to access CEO's office at a given point in time to, I don't know, fix the printer. So that was something that was kind of hard to do because most access control systems operate on a day-to-day basis. So for example, I can issue a card to Rob from February 14th to 16th, but I couldn't really specify that he needs to be there from 2 to 4 p.m. because that is the window of time when he is allowed access to my data center. So one of the big items that we released is what we call temporary access or time-based access groups as well. The way that works is that I can, fulfill just that use case. If I know that by the rules and regulations of compliance for example, data centers, that I have to not only grant access to employees for a certain period of time, but I also have to be liable for keeping track and keeping audit log of who had access to what spaces down to a minute. Now I can automate that entire process. We're used to take a technician to log into access control system, grant somebody access to the server rack and write down the time and date when they granted access, and then wait until that person leaves to again write down the time that the technician left. Now I can actually automatically provision that, and I can say, hey, Rob, you need to go to our LAX data center. We need to change a cable on a faulty server, and you have a window of 2 hours. Your access will automatically activate at, 2 a.m., and it will automatically deactivate at 4 a.m. All of that is now done automatically, and all of this is, as always, available via our API. So that entire process can be tied now into a operational workflow of an enterprise. The time windows are really ultimately configurable. As a default, we've set it anywhere from 15-minute time window to 6 months or more. And there's no technical reason why there are limits. They're just more practical limits. So if anybody needs access for less than 15 minutes, you probably don't need to schedule that ahead of time. There's probably a different process that you need to follow. And the same thing with the 6 months or more, if that kind of starts to get close to permanent access as opposed to temporary access. Again, access is automatically purged, and all of the data is tracked from audit perspective so that the IT team can stay compliant with what is needed for maintaining the data centers. Okay, so that was temporary access. I mentioned that we've delivered quite a few integrations over the last half of 2021 And some of them are, I kind of put them in terms of logos on the screen. So Okta is integration that we've had with our system for a while, but it was missing one important feature, which was a group sync or a group push. What that meant was that it was working fantastically for individual users, but group level changes were a little trickier to flush all the way down into the access control. So a big improvement last year that we've done is we've implemented a way to push group syncs from Okta all the way down to the users in access control. So when you change the permissions of the whole group, you no longer need to manually make the same updates on every single individual users, or what we would see in some situations, you don't need to create a whole new separate Okta group. It's on different permissions and then move all the users individually. Okta, as many administrators on the webinar know, is a powerful tool with a host of other features. And what we are committed to doing is to follow in lockstep and deliver all the feature functionality that makes sense for our integration with Okta in the future releases of the product. So as always, I hope that over the coming months, that number of 200 plus customer insights keeps on growing, because those are the use cases that are use cases coming from customers and our prospective customers that we tend to focus on and understand where the pain points are to be addressed. Usually when we release a feature that's kind of a step one in the whole life cycle of the feature. We love to understand how our customers are using existing feature functionality, and we improve it from there. Speaking of access and provisioning, we've also implemented a two-factor authentication with the YubiKey. So many enterprises use advanced security for access to computer systems, and more increasingly to physical spaces as well. So YubiKey in our case allows administrators enhanced security as well as access to physical doors. Some of the other logos that you see on the screen, so RISE, or VTS as they're now called, this is a tenant amenity app that provides unified user interface to employees of commercial real estate buildings. And similar use case is there with Lane as well. So the way that we fit into this equation is that we provide the logic of access control systems, and the end user experience in this case is handled by RISE or Lane. What it usually looks like is that if you are an employee at an office in a large commercial real estate building, the building will provide you a mobile app and a web-based app that connects you to the kind of operational workflow of that building. That means the work orders, that means access to dry cleaners in the basement, and ability to schedule appointments for car washes. So all of the amenities that a building has, they tend to feed into one of the tenant amenity apps. So it's a unified interface for anybody who interacts with that physical space. So access control naturally is a big component of interacting with a physical space. Again, the role that we play in these integrations is that we provide logic to administrators. We are the integration piece between provisioning credentials from let's say HID and passing those credentials on to the mobile app that the end user has. So in this case, the end user, the employee, is not the advisor which actual access control system they're using. All they know is that their building provides them an app which grants them access into a particular physical space. That's just another benefit of having an access control that is hardware agnostic, that relies on open APIs and enables all of our technology partners to integrate seamlessly and deliver really a solution where the end user doesn't care which technology it is. All they care about is that the experience is impeccable, and we're proud to play a big role in that. Splash. So Splash is a event management platform that some of our customers use, and this really was an integration that had to tackle some of the challenges of the new world that we live in. So based on certain events that are scheduled it would be nice, that's always how our use cases start. Wouldn't it be nice if we could provision access to all the registrants of an event, and then we could yank that access when they're gone, and then we could follow up with, let's say, a quick survey about how their event went. So it's a perfect use case, again, that we could leverage our APIs and Splash's implementation to deliver a seamless experience for both event organizers and event attendees. In a similar case, one of the companies called You Can Book Me deals with, think of it as a Calendly or scheduling meetings that happen in physical space. And those events are, I would say, they tend to be more controlled nowadays in the new world that we live in. So what that means is that if I schedule a meeting with Rob, I now have a way to tell him not just show up on the 5th floor in our office, but I can also configure it in such a way that his access card will be active during the time when he's supposed to meet with me. That allows me to have comfort in the fact that no other people can enter that space if they don't have a meeting booked with me. So a great use case for managing access to physical spaces in the COVID environment. And last but not least, one of the important integrations that we've delivered is a video management system. So Rhombus Systems has a cloud-based video management system that integrates with cameras. We've added it as another VMS on our platform. So we continue to work with any cloud-based VMS provider out there in the market. And again, just because of the ease of integration via APIs, we were able to deliver this in a quick time frame and deliver great value to the end customers. And this one I wanted to highlight kind of on a separate page as some of the benefits of combining multiple systems into a single unified platform. Leveraging the great technology that Rhombus has, we are able to bring into our platform some of the cool features that just exist as a nature of the Rhombus systems as well. So besides having a way to set it up literally within minutes, I hit enable button and I pass in the API key, I can map the doors to cameras, and then I can start making use of some of the really cool features. So for example, when I go to our dashboard, and I see that there are badge in, badge out, or denied access events, I can automatically pull up either a live feed or a video clip of an event that happened at some point in the timeline. What I can also do is I can start to gain more context around it. The really nice bookmark feature that Rhombus has allows us to surface that in the Genea Access Control platform as well. So in this case, we're looking at a snapshot from our Irvine HQ from the lobby on the 5th floor, and I can see that there is an identified face. So David Yerenas, our IT manager, was just loitering in the lobby. I can also see what happened before and after, and I can get a quick understanding of what do those bookmarks mean. So I can see that there was human movement probably 20 minutes before and after David was there. I can recognize that they're unsaved faces. So somebody who is not known to the system appeared in the frame of the camera. I can see that quickly on the timeline. And most importantly for us, I can see where every single badge access grant happened on the timeline. So I can quickly scroll back and forth and get a better understanding of the situation that I have on my timeline. Some of the other items that again come just as a natural existing feature from Rhombus is license plate recognition. So the same way that I can track faces, I can actually start to track license plates, and we can start to generate alerts based off of that. One of probably the most pertinent features to us out of this integration is an ability to recognize a face and badge mismatch. So if I scan into our office door and I accidentally took Rob's badge when I was leaving the conference room, when I scan back into the office, we are going to get an alert raised that the face doesn't match the card. And where that's really, really important is when there's either when the card is lost and somebody else is using it, or when it's just straight out stolen. So that allows security teams to react quickly to remedy those situations. So we are super proud of the Rumba systems integrations. We are adding it to the library now of video management systems that we already have on the platform. And again, the big benefit to us is that we are working with the top tier technologies that address certain pain points that we frankly are just not interested in doing. We are not doing video management systems at this point. And for that reason, we rely on our technology partners who have great solutions and great products to integrate them right into our solution offering. So I mentioned that we had 50 features released. I'm not going to go through every single one on a big screen. Those were the highlights, but I do want to kind of call out a few others that were released over the course of the last year. So a couple of items on the list: paired reader strike follow. What we really understood where this becomes important is, again, in tightly controlled security spaces where we need to build in the logic of how a certain door needs to behave. This goes hand in hand with our if then else rules or IO rules, where we need to configure a particular behavior on a particular door because of the sensitivity of this physical space that is being accessed. Naturally, the next question, if we have a tightly controlled space from a security perspective, the next question is, okay, how do I audit that? How do I see when certain things have happened? How do I see when somebody had access to a particular space? So we've enabled our event log to be much faster, much more scalable, so that the events happen right in the time when the physical event is happening in a space. It was an improvement that actually allows us to scale our platform to 10x of what is capable of doing today. I see a couple of questions, so I will get to the questions when we get to the end. So I'll answer them in a bit. The controller connection stability updates, I mentioned that a bit when we were talking about the panel syncing and ability to push users' keys and configurations down to controllers. Another big important thing that we did along the way was improve the stability. We've had a few situations where the connection was unreliable. We would lose connectivity, and again, it would take about a minute or two for the controller to pick up the connectivity back to the cloud to sync any of the changes that were being done. We have now updated the process in which the controller sync to the platform, and those instances are now remedied, where we do not have a significant downtimes, and by significant I mean minute or two. That is now eliminated from a platform, and that's been improved. Some of the other items are really based on the analytics and how do I make use of the data that my access control platform is providing me. One of those is the analytics regarding access to physical spaces, in particular the busiest door analytic logic. So we went through the use cases and looked at how do our users use the data that our platform makes available for them. All that data is always available via APIs and webhooks, and more advanced organizations will feed them into certain systems of choice to run actual data mining, data analytics. But what we also provide is some of those quick highlights of the data on the platform that we thought are most useful. One of those is, how do you know how many people do you have in your building, in your office on a Monday morning versus Thursday afternoon? That is, again, becoming increasingly more important in this new the COVID or post-COVID world that we live in, where we really are all taking a stock and looking at how our physical space is used. How do we reconfigure offices? How do I know where people are moving? So we're putting effort and energy into improving the analytics that come out of the box with the platform. I mentioned the APIs. So a lot of work has been done with APIs last year to create more granular ability to interact with our APIs. So as opposed to having just all access or no access via APIs, we are now able to define scopes for APIs. So what does that mean? That means that I can create an API key for my development team to interact only with a with the schedules. I can also provide a different API hook to a different team that can make use of the read-only feature of the certain capability. Maybe that's a reporting team whom I do not necessarily want to allow to be able to change anything in the platform, but they can pull the data out of it and present it in a reporting solution. That eliminates any capability of accidentally causing things through API. This is, again, a scalable feature that leads us into some of the new cool stuff that we'll be delivering in 2022, without which we wouldn't really be able to scale the platform. So our entire team is super proud of the work that we've done with APIs. I think this is the nerdy side of me coming out, because those are usually sort of the less grateful things that the development team does when you deliver a major feature, but it's not visible to anybody else other than your fellow developer. This actually does set us on a path to enable many, many more cool things to be presented on a screen, as opposed to just developer documentation. So I won't go through every one of those. There's many more minor things that we released, but one important thing that we did release as part of our badge printing solution is an ability to add barcodes. Again, when we released the initial version, that was now back in, I would say, June, July, we wanted to look and see how some of our users are using our badge printing solution. And one of the things that became apparent pretty quickly is that those badges, those little white cards that are used around the campuses, offices, and buildings, they have usually multiple purposes. Obviously, they have an image of the employee, which is used for identification. They interact with access control readers, so you can open the doors. But beyond that, there are also uses in the cafeteria with the printer. So that really becomes a token of identity. What we've come to realize is that there are other ways to utilize the actual physical space on the card. Barcode is a perfect example of that. Because we can now add barcodes to cards, we don't necessarily need access control readers on every single point of interaction between a person and the service or facility they want to use. I can have a regular barcode reader, and I can use my employee badge to conduct a certain function. For example, in a cafeteria, it's unreasonable to expect that my point of sale system will have an access control reader to take the access control number and map it onto employee number to get employee discount. I can just scan the employee number, and that goes into my point of sale system, matches it to a discount UPC item, and I can process my employee. We achieve that through our custom attributes. So if I have a system that is set up to make use of Okta or Azure AD or Google Workspace, I automatically feed employee numbers with their profile. I connect that custom attribute to our badge printer. So whenever I hire a new employee, they get assigned an employee number, automatically ends up in access control system. And by the point in time where I give them the employee badge, their barcode is already printed, and they can go to cafeteria and get discount on their lunch. The big key here is that I don't need a physical device on site other than the badge printer. I don't need a console where I need to plug in a number. I simply print as if I was printing to my inkjet down in my garage, and we make that available through using the modern browser technology. So as long as the device that your HR person or your IT person who's onboarding the employee, as long as that device has connectivity to the cloud and can communicate to the printer on a local network, we can achieve that fairly easily. One big question we get about that is, do the printers need to be open to the internet? And the answer is no. As long as the device communicating with our cloud has access to internet, we don't need access to internal network at all. So again, it's handled almost as if I had a printer plugged into my computer. And there are more improvements that we're working on as it relates to the badge printing. And this is, again, where we are prioritizing items based on what our customers are telling us, what their pain points are, and what we hear from some of our prospects in the field as well. So let's talk for a minute about visitor management. Visitor management is still best used in combination with our access control. Back when we released visitor management, the big kind of a differentiator was that we did not only replace the physical logbook sitting on some kind of a counter, or a Excel spreadsheet where we log who comes in and who comes out. With deep integration into access control, you can actually manage access to people coming in and out of buildings. Now, once we released it, we put it through our regular process. We've listened to our customers and to other use cases from prospects out there in the field, and we realized pretty quickly that we had two realizations. One is that not every single visitor is the same. So that led us to the release of visitor types, where I can define a different workflow for a delivery person. I can define a different workflow for interviewees, regular customers, or VIP guests who are coming to meet with our CEO. So we released a custom visitor type workflow for any location. That also means you can have different workflows for VIPs at different locations if you choose to. Pretty quickly then we realized, okay, if we have a custom way to check people in, once the visitor leaves, there's kind of a disconnect where we simply check them out and that's the end of the flow. We realized there are use cases for what happens beyond that. Some of the examples are, for example, if I have a distribution center where I treat drivers as visitors, I need to record certain type of information when they drive in versus when they drive out. I may want to set that up as a separate flow for truck drivers versus seasonal workers, for example. So for my truck driver, I can record their driver license name, I can record the seal number, and I can have all of that data available again for auditing purposes. It also helps me understand exactly which trailer numbers and which drivers are on site versus which ones have left. Now we use the same kind of a principle of checking visitors out to enable some of the other use cases. The next closest one is package delivery and pickup. When we look at packages, they're just certain types of, we call them special types of visitors, because each package ultimately has a host that it's meant to go to inside a building or inside an office. So the checkout here becomes very important because you want to know when that package has been delivered, and you want to keep certain records of that pickup time and date, and potentially a signature and a photo. So the checkout fields, we also enable an improved way for delivering packages to people in an office building or in the office itself. And one of the last ones, which to me was super interesting, is actual visitor surveys. A lot of times when you buy something online, when you go to your hairdresser, when you go about your usual life, you get a survey that asks you, well, what was your experience? And it makes perfect sense. If I am attending an event because I was invited through one of our integrations with, let's say, Splash marketing platform, or if I go to a webinar in person, or if I go meet with somebody with a large group, it is reasonable to expect that that host would like to get feedback about their event. They would like to know how they can do better. And this is one of the cases where it was really, really easy to make our checkout fields work for that purpose itself. So we made it so that either you are checking out immediately after the event, you have a way to answer any of the custom questions that the administrators can set up, or if you're automatically checked out at the end of the day, you get an email that asks you to optionally answer a few questions that the organizer may have. So it was a perfect example for me where we took a number of different use cases and seemingly not connected or correlated at all, but making it making our platform and our features be scalable and configurable. We made sure that we can address all of those rather than building a custom purpose-built solution for each of the use cases. We made sure that we can have our technology be configurable to satisfy both. So visitor management had another big release last year, which is physical credentials for visitors. When we released visitor management, one of the big questions was, well, can I have anything other than QR code readers? I have all technology, I have barcode readers. Can we do that? Well, we can now. I'm sorry, my screen sharing just ended for some reason. Let me bring that back. And while I do that, I will answer the question. We have integration with alarm systems such as Risk. So Risco, we are working on understanding the use cases for alarm systems. Right now, what would make most sense is that alarms systems feed events into our alarming platform, and that we trigger actions based on what those alarms are. Again, we're talking about the rules that can be set up. I'm sorry, 1 second. Let me just pull up the presentation again. The interesting thing is that this, I would say, almost never happens, but then when it does happen is when you're live on air. So let me quickly get back to our point where we are in the presentation. Okay. So before I go back to visitor management, I just want to address that question about alarm systems. So we've had inquiries about a Bosch alarm system. I see the Risco is mentioned. We're trying to understand what the use cases are, and then the next step would be to prioritize that in terms of when we would place that on our roadmap. At this point, I would say it's definitely a backlog item, but we need more understanding. So to that extent, I would love to learn more about particular use cases, whether it's just for visibility, how to marry up the alarm events with our access control records. Is it to drive the logic of granting or taking away access? I would say let's have a conversation about that, and feel free to reach out to me. Okay, back to our presentation that my computer rudely interrupted. We were talking about QR codes and the equipment. It costs a lot usually to replace a reader that is embedded into a marble elevator wall. What if I have regular barcode readers? So we've extended the functionality of the barcode to be able to now create not just QR codes, but regular barcodes. If I still have issues with it, if I simply cannot add another piece of physical equipment, well, the backup plan is always that a security guard in the front has a basket of kind of a generic access cards that have visitor permissions, credentials assigned to them. They can give that to individual person who is walking in. They can write that in a logbook or enter it in a system, enter the number, and then that card is just tracked as a visitor number 1 or visitor number 2. Or we wouldn't usually have a very good visibility of who that person is unless we manually correlate them. So what we decided to do is to add a way for visitor management system to assign particular visitor with a particular card number. So what does that mean? That means that in our logs, we can see the name of the person next to access events, as opposed to just a generic visitor card. What I can do when a person walks in, I can pick a card off the stack of cards, can enter the number and assign it to a particular person, so that that person's name is tracked as they move around the building. I can see their access denied or access grant events. And more importantly, that remains within their profile. So next time when they come on site, I can see the entire history of their previous invites, whether they've accepted, refused, and I can also see the access control events as well. For that key card, because it is being reused potentially with multiple visitors, I can also see who has been using that card at what point in time without having to go to another reference system. That means if I see access denied on a Thursday morning at 11:50 a.m., I can see that that was Marcia, as opposed to maybe, I don't know, Aaron, who had it from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. It becomes a lot easier to get additional context about who was in what physical space and when. Of course, all of this is also available via APIs and webhooks, so you can both control the assignment of the cards as well as gain the insight from the data that the access control platform is generating that you can use further downstream in the IT systems. So with 10 minutes left to go, I'll quickly cover what we are working on in 2022. One of the biggest items and the most frequently asked for items is automated reporting. Our platform today provides a fairly user-friendly way to get any data that you need through filtering, through an easy way of kind of looking at access control events by just using our interface. What's becoming kind of a increasingly popular in terms of requests that we get is, well, it's great that I can log in and I can create this sort of a report for myself to tell me, who was on site on Monday morning, but there's friction in a sense that I have to do that every time I log in. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just save it as a set of filters, or if I could save it as a view that I get to every day or every Monday? And then additionally to that, what wouldn't it be nice if I could create a conditions for the report that gets delivered to my mailbox or to my team's mailbox every Monday morning? So I don't have to log in, I don't have to click 8 times to configure a filter that I need. So that is something that our team is currently working on, and that will be available in the first half of this year. We're also working on an important thing that we call lockdown plans. As opposed to just having the ability to lock down the entire facility or unlock it, we'll provide a way to group certain access points and create customized what we call lockdown plans. That means that if you have a fire drill, you no longer need to think, well, do I really want to lock down the whole building, or do I want to pretend? You can actually define which doors will lock for the fire drill, and which doors do I need to lock or unlock in this case for the actual fire. Also, when we talk about the lockdown plans, we are delivering lockdown exceptions. So we know that in certain crisis situations, certain types of personnel need access to areas no matter what. So even if we are under lockdown, we know that paramedics and firefighters and law enforcement and security guards we need a way to exempt certain roles from lockdowns. We're also delivering that as part of lockdown plans. Custom roles is probably one of the biggest features that we're working on this year. And as much as it doesn't sound like a big deal, it actually enables us to do a whole lot more with our platform. Today, we offer 5 or 6, depending on how you count them, different roles between administrators, sub-administrators. We have global admin, we have regular users, and all of those are pretty well defined, and they're kind of locked down. And our customers have to find a way to map the operation of an enterprise to the roles that we provide kind of out of the box to the system. What we've come to understand is that there are needs beyond just what comes out of the box. Enterprises need a way to have granular permissions granted to their existing organizational structures. So what this really means is that as opposed to having the, say, front desk role or the security role, I can customize what that role can do in the future. I can have security role number 1, I can have security role number 2 or 3, or however many levels I can have, each of them having different granular permissions. For example, I can have a security guard role, let's call it level 1, that can only see access groups of people and their badge numbers. But I can have security level 2 then defined, if that's what my enterprise process is, and that security level 2 can have edit permissions on users' access groups. So we are providing a framework where all of those customizations can be kept at the customer level, and we don't need to make up new roles as we find out more use cases out there in the field. All of that is going to be put in the hands of system administrators. I'll jump into the question from Annie. Alongside automated reporting, are there any plans to do attendance reporting dashboards? We'd love to understand monthly average attendance, working from office, hybrid breakdown, number of days employees are coming into office. So the answer is yes. This is one of the most common requests we get for automated reporting. And the way that we plan to release automated reporting is not just to provide a platform where you can create your own reports, but also build out some of the most frequently requested reports that we have from our customers. Attendance report is exactly that. We're realizing that a lot of people are trying to understand where their employees are in physical spaces. When do they come in? When are the offices empty? So attendance report will be something that comes out of the box. And then again, beyond just having it be a kind of a one size fits all, what we plan to offer to our customers is a way to sort of clone it and then adjust it for your own purposes. So if you need to add a column, if you need to change a filter, if you need to do anything that extends the out of the box report, that's where the customizable platform is for. With only a few minutes left, I'm not going to go through all of these. We have more integrations coming. We're improving integrations with existing VMS providers. We're adding parking integration. We're tackling on the wireless logs and IP-based logs, because that has a significant impact on the cost that it takes to implement a system. We're planning to bring in floor maps, and on the visitor management system, we're continually improving purely based on the user feedback. So we're making it easier and more scalable to implement visitor management across multiple sites in the environment. So one other question here is, you have created command and control system. Do you have on your roadmap creating command and control system or integration with command and control system? So if I understand it correctly, it's usually also referred to as the security operations center. We again, we work with I would say any API enabled system that is out there. So usually we run into organizations that use the likes of Everbridge or LifeSafe. So as long as we can interact with the APIs of the system, there's usually no problem to integrate. In terms of creating our own, what we have today is sort of the command and control center light. And when I say that, I refer to our alarms page, where you can see the events that are happening in your platform. You have some of the controls where you can lock and unlock doors. You can see video camera feeds, but we also understand that there's much more to it. There's the escalation path. There is incident management system that we would need to build, so you can create tickets and assign tickets and collect evidence, and mass messaging system that goes out to others. This right now, to achieve these use cases, we integrate with other solutions. Again, I brought up Everbridge and LifeSafe. It's just one example, but those are the systems that specialize in large scale security, how should I say it, incident management beyond just the pure access control. So David, I'm not sure that answers your question exactly. If not, please follow up with me. Again, I would love to hear how you were thinking about this. So I know we're right on time here, and I apologize for the late start and my PowerPoint crashing right down the middle of it, but I will open it up for more questions. I'll keep the meeting going. Are there any more questions? Oh, when can we expect the dashboard release? So Annie, if you're referring to automated reports, currently that is looking like we're planning for Q1 of this year. So we're planning on release in March. Some of that will depend on our testing and kind of the release process that we have in place. How do we make sure that what we release is of the highest quality and that it scales with the increased number of users? So I would say right now it's looking like March. I do not have a specific date just yet. Any more questions from